Ready when you are.
I want to call to order the Alton Area School Board special meeting Tuesday, November 24th at 6 p.m. If everyone could stand for a moment of silence and Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could we have a roll call, please? Mr. Baker.
Here.
Mrs. Breen. Here. Mr. Francis.
Here.
Mr. Hoff.
Here.
Mr. Hoover.
Here.
Mrs. Irwin Adams.
Here.
Mr. Johnston.
Here.
Mr. Cruz.
Here.
Dr. Malloy.
Here.
Thank you. We are ready to have hearing from citizens, and we did have a citizen email us and would like us to read what they have written. So I will do that right now, and then we will get to the other callers. It is from Michael Long. As a parent of a student in the Alton Area School District, I would like to voice my opinion to the school administration's proposal to return to remote learning until February. I believe this is a bad plan and doesn't have the students' best interest at heart. I understand that COVID is real, and there are many throughout our world that have suffered from this disease, and even people have lost their lives. My heart aches for every family impacted, but the statistics are not supporting a complete shutdown or even a return to cyber learning. The level of our kids' learning at the virtual level is unsatisfactory and is failing in comparison to brick and mortar school system. The Alton Area School District has prided itself on an excellent education and is not living up to that standard now. Not to mention the years to come that our students will be behind in all of their work because of virtual learning is not the same as in person from a live teacher. Kids cannot be expected to teach themselves, and this is happening through the virtual portal. Plus, we also need to recognize what this is doing to our kids' mental health. Many are facing anxiety issues because of uncertainties. The increase in depression because kids have limited ways to express their feelings or being around their peers to support them, plus around teachers who care for them and could give them a hug of encouragement or a pat on the back. Students are at higher risk of suicidal tendencies because of isolation and lack of support at home. There are many kids in our school district that have a solid home life and parents who love them and care for them, but the reality is that there are also many that don't have that support at home, and the school is where they get it. This is not a new concept. This has been that way for many, many years. This is why the federal government instituted food programs at school, so kids could get fed consistently Monday through Friday. This doesn't happen through virtual learning. Our kids are suffering as they need a consistent, stable force in the community. That is where the Alton Area School District needs to step up to the plate and be that force, that rock. Our kids need an outlet to learn at an excellent level. The school district has those teachers to perform that duty. Our kids need an outlet to express themselves through the arts, music, and extracurricular activities. The school district has that capability also. Our kids need to be around other peers to feel normal and free to be kids, not alone, isolated, depressed, and feeling anxious. They have many years for that. It's called adulthood. We built a new senior high school to prepare 9th grade through 12th grade for adulthood. Are we using that resource to its fullest capacity? If the governor of our state comes down with an executive order to shut down, then it is out of the school's hands and those laws need to be followed. But right now, that is not the case, and these students need to be in school, and the status quo should not change unless it is returning to a full-time school schedule. Do not change the status quo. On another note, I have 2 older boys go through the Alton Area School District for their whole academic careers. And I have never been so disappointed in the communication level of the school district from the administration level. There has been a great lack of communication and inconsistent communication since February 2020. Maybe we should return to sending letters out instead of relying on emails to students. Maybe the directions could be clearer on the plans to return to school and not just developed in the 11th hour. Maybe a change at the top of the school administration is in order and should be strongly considered, because what is going on now is not working effectively as it has in years past. Thank you for your time. Michael C. Long, Senior Consultant Compliance and Risk, Family Hospice, part of UPMC. And I was reading that for Michael. Thank you. Now we can move on to our people that we're going to reach by phone tonight.
Yep. Hello, Mr. Tambellini.
Yes,
This is Dr. Priatel. You are part of public comment for the Altoona Area School Board Special Meeting.
yes.
You have 5 minutes.
Yeah. Okay, basically what I wanted to say was I'm sure the virtual is going to happen. And I just want to make sure that the virtual is going to happen in a way that is conducive to children's learning. Basically, because last year was not good. I have a grandson in second grade now, first grade. It was all YouTube videos. It wasn't as what we would like to see. So what I'm hoping is that we see some continuity with the teacher, because last year he got to see his teacher maybe 5 times. Every subject, every day was a different teacher, and that's not good for learning. They need one core teacher, one primary teacher. Also, too, they need feedback, because these YouTube videos that provide feedback for how well the student was doing. So I'm looking for continuity and positive feedback, and just overall, I know that when you go to make a decision on how this is going to look, just keep in mind that it's more than just the program that you're buying, like Seesaw or something like that, that the children still need a quality teacher interactive with positive feedback, constructive criticism, and still to try to do as much with fidelity as you can.
Thank you.
That's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
Okay?
We appreciate the comments.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello?
Well, is this Angel Homan?
Yes, it is.
This is Dr. Priatel. You're here for the public comment at the Altoona Area School District Special Board Meeting. You have 5 minutes.
Yes, sir. I thank you for your time and everyone else's time. I just wanted to give input as a parent with multiple children. I myself personally have 5 children. I'm responsible for handling all 5 of the children's schooling. At this time, it's been pretty difficult. My children are in 7th, 6th, 4th, 1st, and Head Start. So I have all ranges. The difficulty is the amount of work that each individual child is responsible for. My concern is that with me having so many children, the way things are going, I'm assuming we're going to end up virtual. My worries and concerns are with children who have IEPs, behavioral issues, and who cannot work independently. I'm afraid of maybe one or more of my children failing due to me not being able to keep up with all of the responsibilities of the 5 children. So I was just wanted to give input as a parent who is single with multiple children, and if that could be taken into consideration as well for other parents in the same situation.
Thank you.
I thank you for your time.
You have a good evening.
You too, sir. Hello?
Is this Cassie Kyle?
Yes.
This is Dr. Priatel. This is your time for public comment at the Altoona Area School District Special Board Meeting. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Cassie Cardo, and I'm a senior at AASD. Thank you for the opportunity to provide a statement from a student perspective. Please allow me to just read my statement. As you know, the current senior class lost almost a third of its year and has been in school only 5 to 6 days of the year. We are not okay. I'm concerned how this is going to impact my ability to pursue college and consequently my children's career in life. I'm totally aware of the risks involved with attending in-person classes. However, I feel safer in school than anywhere else in the community. School has safety protocols put in place that the general public does not. Even the CDC director, Dr. Redfield, said in a White House briefing last week that according to the data, the transmissions are coming more from the community than schools. Also, that he encourages K-12 face-to-face learning to continue, and it is not a recommendation from the closed schools. Also, last week, Governor Wolf, along with 6 other governors in the Northeast, jointly released a statement, and I quote, medical research as well as the data from northeastern states from across the country and from around the world make clear that in-person learning is safe when the appropriate protections are in place, even in communities with high transmission risk. In-person learning is the best possible scenario for children, especially those with special needs with low-income families. There's also growing evidence that the more time children spend outside of school increases the risk of mental health harm and affects their ability to learn, to truly learn, end quote. We are mentally exhausted, we are anxious all the time, we need human interaction, even if it is mass. I'm afraid of the long-term effects this will have mentally, emotionally, and socially. According to an article from September in the U.S. News and World Report, the suicide rate keeps rising among youth. Depression and anxiety are also on the rise. Kids don't turn on their cameras in classes because they are more than likely not out of sight. Huddle under blankets in the dark room. My cousin is a drug and alcohol counselor who says that he has experienced an increase in substance abuse across the board and overdoses are up as well. If adults are having problems coping, think about the kids. If kids are in school, it is almost impossible for adults to see the red flags to try to get these kids help. If a student feels comfortable, he or she has the ability to go completely virtual. If a student refuses to wear a mask, he or she should be automatically sent home to be completely virtual. I, for one, do not do as well in virtual as I do in person. The teachers are doing an amazing job, but it's just not the same. My education is very important to me, and I just want to be prepared for college and life. I hear a lot of comments that are focused on elementary students not being able to be home alone and can concentrate in the virtual environment. Neither can other students. I see myself and my peers struggling when things to thrive. People are saying bring back elementary kids 5 days, make the older kids go virtual again. Our education is just as important. We don't have time to get caught up before we go off to college. Ultimately, I hope to make the best decision for all students K-12, even if that means going completely virtual. However, I implore you to make it short term, like 2 weeks, and not for the rest of the working period. 2 weeks will cover a quarantine period that people may need because of traveling over the Thanksgiving holiday. Additionally, Governor Wolf just announced the other day that if your school is virtual, all extracurricular activities and sports must stop, basically ending the winter athletic season if you vote to go virtual the rest of the working period. Then what are we going to do? We'll have no outlets. We'll have nothing to look forward to. We will be lost. Dances, athletics, and other events during the school year are the only things that keep some kids actively engaged in school in both academics, independence, and far away from any substance abuse or any other inappropriate behavior. For me, athletics has always was the one thing that made me feel any kind of normalcy He gave me a physical, mental, and social outlet in a safe environment. We had lost so much and just went to be in school. We're not okay. Thank you for listening.
Very well stated. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello, is this Dr. Rhodes?
Yes, it is.
This is Dr. Charles
Michael on mute,
Freetel.
plus if there's a delay. I'm sorry, we're watching the YouTube video of you guys right now, and there's a delay.
Sorry about that.
No, it's fine.
You're on with the Altoona Area School Board at the special meeting. You
Oh,
have,
hello.
welcome to public comment. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to discuss in terms of this virtual plan that you guys want to roll out tonight, and report that I do not believe this is a good idea for any of the students. My son had COVID-19. He had to be on quarantine for 10 days. He sat here at our house. Your virtual school and classes, I'm not sure if anyone has the job of monitoring the ratios and things of that nature. For a first grader, my son was placed in your virtual school. His Zoom class consisted of 70 participants. He raised his hand numerous times for help or to give the answer and was never selected. I'm not sure if it's because he was the new kid on the block due to being there just for quarantine, or if just the sheer number of students made him look not there. It's also important to know, after we've been experiencing this virtual edition of Altoona, first graders not only have their Zoom session with their teachers, we have the Seesaw platform to do 8 to 12 assignments a night with a 7-year-old. These assignments are not just via Seesaw. We have to have usernames and passwords and access to get to Connected, to Raz, to Epic, to YouTube. It's exhausting. We did Zoom every morning from 9 to 10, and then special education from 10 to 11, which is nowhere near what his IEP calls for. But that's all the time that we could find with our teachers. Also, I find that the thought of not sending our children back until February, but yet allowing sports to start again on December the 14th, is very, very frustrating as a parent who doesn't benefit at all from athletes getting to go back. My student is in special education. Why not send the special education kids back December the 14th? If sports are that important, our children, all of them, should be that important. I'm going to speak on something I'm not too sure about. I do not have a high schooler in my house that attends your school. I watched the YouTube video of the tour of the new school this afternoon, and I'm having such a hard time comprehending how we didn't understand the number of students going to be in the high school, enough that we had hundreds packed into a gymnasium on the first day back. But yet it's too dangerous to have 20 elementary students in a room with a teacher for learning. I'm not sure if you guys have logistics of any kind to see how many students are in every room of the high school, if there's a way for the teachers to change the rooms versus all of the students changing rooms that they'll change. I'm not sure if you're utilizing all of these enormous open spaces that the new school was allotted, the active learning areas, your STEM commons. I'm sure the earth science outdoor area can't be used in December. But I mean, even the band room or the auditorium that can contain 1,200 people per the video, I'm not sure if that's accurate, could be sectioned off and having students be properly socially distanced to be able to maintain school. The other thing I'd like to comment on, at the beginning of school, whenever the K-5 students went back full time, we did lunches grab and go. And I felt this option was also a very intelligent option in the middle of a pandemic versus trying to do warm lunches and go through lunch lines and things. I don't understand why we bring all of the kids back and we go to these warm lunches in no order. And I'd like to say I did want to speak at the last meeting and I was not called or anything. I sent all of you a letter and then called the same number I called today. But, you know, again, we're giving parents 6 days to figure out full-time care for their children. I don't know if you realize the position you put a lot of us in last time. We had
teachers who had no care for their students who were in school. We had parents dishing their kids to grandparents who are the most in danger for COVID-19. We have daycares that weren't taking school-age children, parents calling off of work. I mean, it was very irresponsible. And I really do feel that you guys have really failed the teachers, the parents, and our students. I don't believe in virtual learning. I know my son is not doing well. He's almost failing language arts. He's not progressing in his reading, and he's not getting near the time that he needs in a virtual atmosphere versus a one-on-one. So those are my comments, and you can take them for what they're worth. I know it's probably impossible to overturn the vote, which 6-3 last time is probably going to support this new virtual thing that you guys have PowerPoints made up for already. But, you know, I hope parents listening, look at the other cyber academies. If you don't want your child in with 70 other children, you can do something about it, and your taxes will pay for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
State and local sources.
Hello?
Hello, is this Shawna Flanagan?
Yes.
This is Dr. Prietel at the Altoona Area School Board meeting.
Hi.
You are here for public comment. You have 5 minutes. You may
Okay,
begin.
thank you. So I'm just calling, I'm the mother of a first grader who currently goes full-time at Ebner Elementary, and he has been doing great. So once you guys started this hybrid schedule, it's been terrible. These YouTube videos that they have to watch on the days that they're not in school do nothing for him. And last year when everything shut down the first time, it actually affected his reading, and he is not where he needs to be for first grade reading. So when he started school back in September, he's doing the LLI classes now, and it's been helping tremendously. You can see a huge difference in him. But I feel going all virtual again, he's going to regress back to how he was. Those videos just don't do anything for them. It's just a waste of time. And I feel so bad for all these kids, especially K through like 4th grade. They're at that crucial brain development right now where they're at the point, the stimulation with their teachers and the other kids. The face-to-face learning is just so much better than the virtual. It just concerns me that whatever plan you guys have right now for not having face-to-face for the kids is really, really going to be bad for these little kids. And I don't know why we can't go back to how it was in September when you just had like K through 4 going to the elementary schools and having the older kids doing the virtual and staying home. Those kids know how to read. These poor kindergarten, 1st and 2nd graders, my child cannot read, and it has a lot to do with him not being able to go to school. And this is just terrible. There has to be a better way than just saying, hey, no, nobody's going to go to school. I mean, what's going to happen to the kids that parents work full-time? I work full-time. My husband works full-time. There's going to be kids left at home because we have to work. I mean, that happened in March and April. I know kids who are at home and their parents went to work, and I'm talking like kindergarten and 1st graders. That is a huge deal. And not being able to be home and help my kid with this virtual learning because he has to be at a grandparent's house who they have no idea how to help them is just deterring their development even more. So we're going to have my child going into 2nd grade not being able to read and do math, the basic things. So I think it's very, very, very important that you reconsider these little kids who need this FaceTime with their teachers. It's so important. It's not that I don't want to be home and help my kid with school. We have done it, and did not work. It's just, I'm not a teacher. I do the best that I can, but it's to a point where I don't know the different strategies, just the different strategies I need to do to help him. And I just feel that he needs to be in school, and you guys really need to work with these little kids. I mean, I do feel bad for, like I said, the older kids, but my child cannot read. How terrible is that? He's in first grade and he's having issues with reading. His brain development right now, he needs to be in school with his teacher and other children learning. So I beg you, please just do the right thing. I understand there's the COVID and whatever. I'm a nurse. I understand. I know. But this is my child, his development. I mean, we have to go beyond this. When does this stop? When do we get back to where we need to be? We have to go forward and not backward. So I just thank you for your time, and I pray that you guys will really, really think about this, especially for the little kids. They need to be in school. They need to be in school. And that's all. I mean, there's going to be parents out there who are going to have to quit their jobs because they need to be home to help their kids. And they're actually, I don't feel that I help him. I do everything that I can, but it comes to a point where I can only do so much. And that's all that I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. And please, again, please just take this all into consideration, especially for these.
2200. That's 1-800-683-2200 now.
It's so sad for them.
Visit us online 24/7 at Delaney.
Hello?
Is this Kyle Harpster?
Yes, it is.
This is Dr. Prietel. Welcome to the Altoona Area School Board Special Meeting. This is the public comment. You have 5 minutes.
Yeah, I just wanted to call in and kind of in agreement with a lot of the other parents that have already called in, kind of against the route that we're probably going to go into with the virtual learning. Having two girls at home, both in elementary school at Ebner, the virtual learning is definitely not helping them at all. I believe it's not the atmosphere for them to be learning. They don't have the other kids around them to help them learn, the teachers there. And two, especially if we would, happen to go into another shutdown or anything, with me and my wife being both working full-time jobs, her in the medical field, me at the railroad. I mean, we're not able to take off work. Both have, all four of the kids' grandparents, both still working. I mean, we don't have any grandparents to help out with the kids. So, sending our kids to someone's house this day and someone's house that day isn't any safer for them to be in separate homes. Definitely need them to go to school full time. Even with my daughter oldest daughter struggling with reading, us at home isn't helping with them at all. So, I just wanted to share my opinion, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello.
Is this Tara Steinbuckle?
Yes, it is.
This is Dr. Prietel. Welcome to the Altoona Area School Board meeting. This is public comment. You have 5 minutes.
Thanks for taking my call. I just want to voice my concerns about the voting item to move to complete virtual instruction. I am the parent of 2 seniors this year, and you guys keep moving the goalpost. First it was as soon as the new building is done, the end of September, we're going to be back to 5 days in-person learning, and then no, we're going to go to a hybrid model, and now it's we're going to go virtual. So you're really kind of toying with their emotions. Also, for years, parents have been told to limit screen time. Now you're asking these children between the ages of 8 and 18 to be on a screen for 7+ hours a day, where the American Heart Association recommends 2 hours. High schoolers will have had a total of 5 days of in-person learning in almost a year. How's that preparing them for college? There's been lack of communication from guidance counselors on college applications and college processes, and I know a lot of parents are in the same boat as myself, picking up that slack. Children's grades are suffering. The students feel as though they have to teach themselves. There's a lack of motivation. There's increased feelings of depression and anxiety. I know that it was read earlier, but I feel that the quote from Governor Wolf and the governors of New York and New Jersey, feel that it's worth reading again. That medical research, as well as the data from northeastern states from across the country and from around the world, make clear that in-person learning is safe when the appropriate precautions are in place, even in communities with high transmission rates. In-person learning is the best possible scenario for children, especially those with special needs, and from low-income families. There is also growing evidence that the more time children spend outside of school increases the risk of mental health harm and affects their ability to truly learn. How is the Altoona Area School District prepared to support these students and their ability to learn if you move forward with virtual instruction? I'm a school administrator for a private school in State College, and with the exception of 2 weeks in September and the 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, State College Area School District has offered 5-day in-person learning to their students, during which COVID cases in Center County have skyrocketed. Why is it that State College can do it and Altoona cannot? Our students deserve to have consistency. The current hybrid model does not provide this. Students are faced with the feeling of chaos and disorganization. The uncertainty of not knowing what to expect from one day to the next not only increases it only increases their feelings of anxiety. Just yesterday, in Dr. Levine's address to the public, she stated that even in the substantial risk category, schools can and should remain open for in-person instruction as long as the school district signs an attestation that they are complying with the CDC guidelines. So I'm wondering why Altoona School District cannot sign this attestation. And lastly, in the current proposed model, how is Altoona Area School District going to provide meals for those students who qualify for free or reduced lunch? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
To transfer.
I'm not transferring.
To transfer, press 1.
I know I hit one button.
To
Hello?
Hello, is this Aaron Schumacher?
Yes, it is.
This is Dr. Charles Prietel, the Altoona Area School Board Special Meeting. This is public comment. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, if you could, a little clearer into the phone. Thank you.
Yeah, I was using earbuds. Hang on. Is this better?
Much. Thank you.
Okay. I know some of the people had issues. I wanted to make sure I was clear. So I just kind of typed up something to try to keep it simple. So it's going to be a little robotic. I'm just going to read off. First off, I'm a mom of 4. I have kids in grades 3 to high school. I work full time and I have professional experience in human services and higher education. And I also just wanted to note, as I was listening to some of the comments tonight, the bulk of my master's degree was completed online. So just for what it's worth, that there is such a thing as distance learning that is quality. Anyhow, I didn't ask to speak up for the purpose of trying to change anybody's opinions. I just feel like there's some things that need to be said. There is a large portion of people who have opposing opinions to what has been said so far and what has been said in previous board meetings. And I feel like a lot of times those people aren't speaking up. They just tend to be, I guess, more passive or want to avoid conflict. So first, just acknowledging how incredibly difficult all of this has been for anybody who's been having to make decisions during this time of COVID-19, the professionals, the families, the students, all of us. Really, I guess I'm just hoping that some of what I have to say tonight is unifying, because I just feel like there's so much against each other, negativity. Something that I said more publicly on Facebook the other day that seemed to resonate, that I felt was worth repeating, is just a reminder that people aren't disposable like PPE. Mr. Homan warned us about a month ago that we should check and see how long our resources could last for disaster prevention purposes. And I just feel like, I don't know what his intentions were fully in saying that, but that includes helping professionals. That includes our essential workers, our teachers, our medical professionals, etc. We can't just blow through those like masks. Although we all want what kids deserve, and we know, as it's been stated repeatedly, that in-person learning may be the best option, it may not be the most realistic option right now. And again, just a personal note, one of the reasons I chose a graduate program that was fully online was because that's what fit my lifestyle at the time. I was a full-time working mom. So sometimes we have to pick things that maybe aren't our first preference, but maybe are just what's necessary. Also, I feel like if we hone the goals in to things that are more basic as far as education goals, that we won't have to compromise quality of learning. And again, for what it's worth, my kids have had an excellent experience with virtual learning since the start of the school year. I chose to keep my 3rd grade students home. And of course, my junior high and high school kids were home. And then I chose to continue to keep them home when we moved to the in-person model. A lot of that has been because of the teachers just being so committed. I don't know. I just don't really understand when I'm hearing these experiences about these awful virtual learning experiences. I know it wasn't super ideal back in March, but that was like crisis mode. So maybe for any parents who are concerned about what it looks like now, it is much better now. It's much more organized, and the communication with the teachers is just really important. As far as like the people at home really communicating with teachers. Also, this is kind of in response to one of the initial comments, I think it was the first comment. I'm kind of astounded, as a community, we can't expect the school district to provide everything that the kids need, including all of their food needs and emotional needs and all of that. We have to help each other. We have to work together as a community. And wholeheartedly, I put myself out there that, I'm not an instructional designer expert or anything, but I do have some education and a lot of personal experience with some of these things. And I am more than happy to sit and help anybody who needs help better understanding how to just kind of navigate these systems and things for their students. And that's just on a personal note. I don't care if I know them or not. They can reach out to me. I'd be happy to help. The other thing I wanted to say was like these underprivileged and vulnerable kids from somebody who grew up in a single parent home, was a first generation college student. I mean, I know a thing or two about growing up underprivileged. And, you know, those kids really should be on the radar, absolutely, for the community to be helping and supporting. And if there is any chance of certain students being able to get in-person learning or, you know, some kind of model like that, absolutely, the children who are coming from more privileged backgrounds should be the ones who are getting the most supported home in order to maintain virtual learning. Yeah.
That's time.
Okay. Well, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you very much to the essential workers. Your work is not being missed. And basically, people who are bashing these people and taking the opportunity to just do that publicly, whether it's in these school board meetings or on Facebook, I just think it's a shame because those people can't defend themselves as teachers and nurses. They put their jobs at risk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello?
Mr. Gilmore,
Yes.
this is Dr. Charles Prietel for the Altoona School Board meeting. You're in public comment. You have 5 minutes.
Yes, I'm just one of the parents that called in. I totally agree with them. I have a kid in Ebner right now, obviously elementary school. They need the structure in school. I believe if the parents want to send them, you know, the social distance, the mask, if they're working, why can't we keep them in school? The elementary and the junior highs, they need the structure. They cannot, the virtual is horrible. It was horrible last year. His grades have been suffering. This is his first year that his grades were off of all the other years. We are not teachers. We're trying to teach, you know, these children, you know, and I'm an older parent, on all these different subjects that we have basically no knowledge of, that we're trying to reteach ourselves. And also with the, you know, working, trying to find somebody to watch them. And, you know, for them to try to do the work, like they said, the grandparents that are the most vulnerable, that most of these kids are getting pushed on, it is totally not working. Then, you know, what happens in February if you guys shut us down in February? What happens come February? So, you know, is it going to get shut down again? You know, what happens next year? This has been ongoing for so long. You know, every time, you know, next year we get a new virus or something, we cannot keep shutting schools down. The elementary schools and the junior highs, to me, those kids are the most, you know, they need the most in-class learning. The senior high kids, you know, they're more adapted to do online, but I believe, you know, the elementary schools, especially the younger age elementary schools, like the one lady said, you know, they're kindergarten and first grade, they can't read. You guys are controlling their futures. You guys have to look back and later years, you know, to say, man, we did to these kids, were we right or were we wrong? So I just asked, you know, please don't fail our kids, you know, and I just haven't, you know, to keep up with, you know, all the schoolwork that they're doing. Like all these parents are saying, it's virtually impossible for all these parents that work full time to try to get all their kids' schoolwork done. It is, you know, especially watching all these videos, it's almost impossible to keep up and get their schoolwork turned in. So I just hope, you know, you guys made the right decision. I know you probably already have your mind made up, and, you know, but please come look at February, you know, let us send these kids back or do what you were doing. You know, some going to junior high, some going to, you know, the elementary schools. So that's all I got to say. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Brennan?
Yes, sir.
This is Dr. Charles Pretel at the Altoona Area School Board meeting. This is public comment. You have 5 minutes.
All right, I'm just going to read a bit here. It's been almost a year since the new school board took its seat. People still call and message me. Prior to the November 5th meeting, I heard from 4 nurses, 2 EMTs, 1 doctor, and another doctor indirectly. The resounding question from all of them was, what the heck is AASD thinking? At the time, the board was considering sending all students back to school at once, completely ignoring the notion of social distancing. I had a parent reach out and say, if I had known that the school didn't have the space for social distance, there's no way I would have checked yes for full time. They don't tell us this stuff. And sure, the CDC recommends schools should be open with the proper social distancing and mask requirements followed. When you cannibalize rooms in the elementary schools to fit children in on a normal basis, you can't social distance. And that was obvious whenever you guys moved 4th and 5th grades over to the junior high initially. I still wonder how the board can recommend full-time and hybrid models whenever it sits in the comfort of the junior high with no audience allowed. I mean, if everybody truly believes COVID was no big deal, you could have just as easily had board meetings in the auditorium where the public could attend. At another meeting, instead of the board discussing the safety of the fans at Mansion Park, it debated how hard it would be to prove that any COVID case came from a football game. I mean, seriously, the solicitor commented, the standard of care was known and well publicized and not followed, thus implying legal liability. When the board inevitably agreed to ignore the state's edict of 250 people, instead it decided to set the capacity at 25%, which would be 2,500 people. Now, I get it. I've disagreed with a great deal of the state's COVID measures. Unfortunately, there's a right way and a wrong way to handle things. The right way would be for the board members to get out of their seats, make the trip to Harrisburg, and plead their case. That's the way it was handled decades ago. The wrong way is to puff your chests out, flatly ignore the directives, and put the district directly in front of a potential lawsuit. I still talk to a lot of staffers and the morale is in the toilet. Several have said they feel the pressure from the administration, who is feeling the pressure from the board, who, and I'm quoting this here, has not even seen the inside of their school. A teacher said they have their resignation sitting in their desk. No new position, just a resignation. Another staffer said that every single teacher they talked to in their building had applied to another district. How is any of this okay? What good is a better teaching environment and the pre-K to 12 curriculum that your superintendent rebuilt from the ground up? What good is any of that if you're not taking care of your staff? You don't just have a responsibility to your students, but you have a responsibility for those folks as well. Teachers, custodians, maintenance, secretary, police, volunteers, everyone deserves a little bit of consideration instead of just brushing them aside, citing statistics for people under 20. To quote Tim Homan in regard to the COVID deaths, you can't say it's only 33 people because those people have families too. So at this point, the state has presented quite the interesting conundrum. School districts can do one of 2 things. Either A, you can go virtual, dealing with angry parents, students that struggle in that environment, and the logistics of going virtual, or B, you can sign their promissory note that the school district will stay open but will abide by all COVID precautionary mandates. That means all adults and students will wear masks and will have the proper 6 feet of social distancing. If you're caught breaking these rules, the state plans to enforce the mandatory virtual model and immediately suspend all extracurricular activities in that district. So I guess my only question is as the president of the board, Mrs. Breen, will you be willing to sign off on either of those responses, of course, after the board of 9 renders their decision? Or is this going to be another situation where we have the board, half the board balking at things, voting no, walking out of meetings and so forth? Or are we going to agree on something? So That's my only question. That's my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan.
Hi, this is Jeremy.
Jeremy, this is Dr. Prietel at the Altoona Area School Board meeting. This is public comment. You have 5 minutes, sir.
Okay, thank you guys for taking the time to allow me to talk this evening. My biggest concern, I just want to say, we're a public school. We weren't designed to be a cyber school. The curriculum wasn't set up that way. What are we going to do for the children who are struggling with the cyber school? I have a son that is struggling, and I fear he's going to fail. Are we going to put a curriculum in place that's set up for digital learning to help these kids, or should parents look at other options, different cyber academies and things like that, that have more one-on-one interactions with the teachers? I'm going to keep it short and sweet. That's all I have. I just want to see what you guys are going to do for the kids, because at the end of the day, that's what matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Oops, I didn't catch the area code right.
The number you dialed is not in service.
Did you download one?
Yeah, I did. I had to. Yeah, but cell phones come from everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's only coming from Texas to, and the kid goes to Juniata.
Hello?
Dominica Kreiner.
She handed me the phone to talk.
Okay.
This is her husband.
This is Dr. Prietel, Altoona Area School Board special meeting. This is public comment. You have 5 minutes.
Well, thank you for your time.
What?
My biggest
Can you-
concern is with our
Sir?
oldest daughter,
Sir?
who is,
1 second.
yes,
Can you tell me your name, please?
Jess.
Jess Kreiner?
I'm sorry, Hattison, Hatison.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
So we have an older daughter that's over in the life skills class of the junior high, who is a non-reader, who last year during the virtual school, this did not help her at all. So my biggest concern going forward with possibly virtual learning, what are you guys going to do for the special needs students in the life skills class? That's my biggest question at this point in time frame, is the life skills class over at the junior high. Is there a way that they could still go to school? Because she will not be able to do it on her own. Thank you.
Thank you. I feel like Nick Perry.
Hello?
Hello, is this Brittany Veglia?
Yes, this is she.
This is Dr. Prietel at the Altoona Area School Board special meeting. This is public comment. You have 5 minutes.
Hi, I was just
calling. I know you guys are discussing the virtual learning. My son is a sixth grader at the junior high. He currently has an IEP and is in some special education classes. So my concern for him is that currently the IEP and the kids with learning disabilities are not getting proper help with the virtual learning. It's not helping him at all. So I don't understand why these children with IEPs or learning disabilities cannot go to school. I understand that we're concerned with COVID, but the school district does have over 6,000 students and only 29 of them are positive. So that's less than 1%. I understand we have staffing issues to worry about. Also, we have to worry about the parents who work full time. How do these kids get the help they need? My child has an IEP. I work all day. Therefore, he is left at home alone to do work on his own. His reading is already behind and has fallen more behind since we've started virtual learning. I was always for the kids going fully back to school. I was very acceptable in accepting for you guys to put them in through the hybrid program. That is better to me than being fully virtual. I would just like you guys to think and just make sure that this is for the kids' best interest, because I know that's what we have in mind. But with less than 1% of our child population being positive, I feel that that's not enough of a number to consider putting these kids fully virtual. Thank you guys for your time. I just want you to think of the children that have the learning problems and with the IEPs. It seems to be more of a concern tonight than in previous meetings. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I guess I'm okay. We'll find out what happens. Okay. I'm telephone impaired. That's just all there's to it.
Let me know what's to-
Yeah. Dialed it correctly. Let me try it again. I'm not getting a dial tone. That's it. Damn.
Hello?
Hello, Mr. Kimball.
Hello?
Is this Kevin Kimball?
Hello?
Hello?
Hello. Is this Kevin Kimball? I'll try one more time.
We could hear him. For some reason, he couldn't hear us.
Hello?
Mr. Kimball?
Yes, speaking.
This is Dr. Prieto for the Altoona Area School Board in our special meeting. This is public comment. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much for the time. I'm not going to cover over any of the problems that virtual learning has, as many other parents have already touched on that. What I am going to cover is what we are actually dealing with, what you guys are going to be voting on, and why the virtual learning isn't necessary. Now, to start with, just a few of the points that I have done this week, contacting Altoona Hospital, Mason Hospital, VA Hospital, UPMC Center out of Pittsburgh. The other data that I'm getting is from both the CDC and the Pennsylvania Health Department, as well as Johns Hopkins COVID tracker, right? Just so everyone knows where we're coming from on these. What we're looking at today, we've had 3,440 cases in Blair County. Okay. New cases as of yesterday were 87. But for the last month or so, we've been averaging less than a hospitalization a day in a county that has over 1,500 beds counting the number of ICU beds, number of licensed beds, and number of staff beds in this county. We're running right now to 1.54 county fatality rate. Okay, to put that in perspective, about 4 years ago, our county fatality rate during the normal flu season was 2.2. Now, everybody's looking at the current rise in cases we're having in this spike as we're coming into our normal flu season. But if you check with the Pennsylvania Health Department and the CDC websites, the cases listed as everybody's quoting as COVID-19 cases are that, but they're also normal flu cases and pneumonia cases all tallied together, as well as both the CDC and the Pennsylvania Health Department aren't just listing confirmed cases. For every confirmed case they have, they add 2 to 5 more cases in, depending on the density of the population location. As on the Pennsylvania website, they call it probable cases. On the CDC, it's referred to as possible cases. So we're looking at a spike in cases as we're entering a flu season that's recording flu cases in with the COVID-19 cases. So that's the start of the problem of focusing on how many cases we've had so far. Especially as a county, we have a mortality rate that is lower at this time of year than we've had in past flu seasons. Okay, now, on the next point, let's step into the states that have been doing full lockdown and look at states that have been open for the last while. New York, New Jersey, 2 of some of the most strict lockdown cases we have the highest case and highest death rate in the country for a state. Where you look at Florida and Texas, they have been operating almost completely open for the last couple of months. Even their school systems fully back and functional have a death rate half of those places with higher population. What we're having driven right now is a media publicity-driven fear of this that we're facing in this country that probably any other year than an election year would have been ignored. Stepping over to Pennsylvania itself, we've had a total of 10,000 cases so far since this whole situation has begun. Only 905 of them have anything to do with respiratory symptoms. The breakdown of the other cases in this state, of that 10,000, 2,042 of them, the people actually died of dementia, but they also had COVID. 1,783 of them died of hypertension, but they also had COVID. 1,176 of them died of diabetes, but they also had COVID. 756 died of coronary artery disease, but they also had COVID. Now going down the descending order, we hit the first respiratory category that actually has died with COVID, COPD, which is almost capable of killing the person on itself. So yes, this is the first category we've hit of a pre-existing condition that actually ties in with COVID death.
Sir, this is time.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello?
Is this Deann Evans?
Yes, it is.
This is Dr. Prieto at the Altoona Area School Board Special Meeting. This is public comment. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'm not sure if you remember, I called in for the school board meeting on 11/9. So I wrote another letter. I want to start with following up from my first letter I read at the school board meeting on 11/9. After I hung up, Dr. Priatelli made the statement, "I will make sure we get in touch with her tomorrow to deal with her individual issues." After a week of not hearing anything about my individual issues, I made the follow-up phone call on 9/16.
An IEP meeting was then held for my son on 11/19, where we planned his return back to traditional school 5 days a week. The plan was to start after the Thanksgiving break, and in this plan, he would have been in the emotional support room for first, third, fifth, sixth, and seventh period. The only classes he would not receive an emotional support was geography, art, and phys ed. You mentioned that the special education department goes down the caseload list and touches base with each family regarding their students. But how can they properly do that without the full information? I was told that until the reading of my letter at the school board meeting and the conversation that followed it, they weren't even aware that students had the option to return full-time if the IEP team felt they needed it. Funny that in all your planning and ensuring things were in place for school sports, it was never mentioned to the special education department that students who needed to attend 5 days a week could in fact return to full-time traditional schooling. I was told on Monday, 11/23, that if it is voted on and approved for the district to go full virtual, no students would be in the school buildings. So now that we've had this meeting and it's stated my son needs to be in school full-time, I would like to know what the plan is for all the students who have IEPs, and it is stated that they need to attend full-time instructional support. Mr. Hatch, you mentioned that you look at every student with IEPs individually, and those considerations have been taken into account. So again, I ask you, where is my son's SEA for 100% of his school day? Where is his emotional support, his modified assignments, his sensory items, his extra time, his additional instruction? If he needs those things for school, how do you come to the conclusion that he doesn't need them to complete school from a different building? Because really, that's what you are saying has changed, just the location. That these children can do without. Children deserve the same support and same education, regardless of which location they are learning from, if you are not going to allow them in school. Dr. Priatelli and Mr. Hatch kept blowing off Ed Cruz's comments about taking a second look at all special needs students in their IEPs. You kept saying that you do this already. If that's the case, why did I have approximately 20 families reach out to me in one way or another after my letter saying their student is also not getting the support they need? Their student's education is falling behind. Their student's mental health is declining. Their student is being failed. If you do not take a look at each individual child, because let me remind a visualized education plan, then myself and all these other families would not feel the way we do. I understand that a neighbor school has chosen to go full virtual, but why all of a sudden are we trying to piggyback them? We didn't piggyback them in the beginning of the year when they were allowing students of all ages to return. Why not consider other neighboring schools who are continuing to stay open and allow their students to learn in person? Are we going to ignore the fact that maybe numbers increased because a new testing site opened and more tests were available? Parents are calling in, writing in, and returning those surveys, begging for our input to be considered for our children to be in school. You as a board have the opportunity to make that possible. You as a board have the opportunity to allow these children to succeed. Dr. Priatelli, I'm going to try to put this in terms that may catch your attention and make you care. When the standardized test scores are down because our children have not received the education and support that they need and deserve, and that may just affect all these expensive changes you continuously want to push on us to make to our school's property. Oh, and Dr. Priatelli, one more thing. My son has special needs. He is not handicapped. Having an IEP does not make you handicapped, as you stated in the last meeting. Let's also not forget the gifted students have IEPs as well. And no student, IEP or not, is lesser. You as the superintendent and leader of our district should educate yourself on the children in your district. Sincerely, one very irate mother of the Altoona Area School District.
Thank you.
Hello?
Michelle Weston.
Yes.
This is Dr. Priatelli of the Altoona Area School Board Special Meeting. This is public comment. You have 5 minutes.
Hi, thank you for your time. I'm just kind of curious as to how many of you on the school board have students in the district, and just have the struggles that us as parents have on a daily basis. I understand that, some kids excel very well virtually. However, I have two, one in high school and one in elementary school. And my high schooler has been a straight A student for a number of years, and now she is struggling, which makes it very difficult. My third grader just had conference today. She has actually, since being back in school, jumped up 2 reading levels, which is, very good for her. And my concern is just going all virtual. Just as parents, I'm working from home. It's very hard to work like an 8-hour day and then also try to teach your child on top of everything else. Also, some concerns that I have is I had to take an hour out of my day last week to try to figure out how to get my daughter into her Google Meet because her Chromebook wasn't working properly. I called numerous people at the school, couldn't get an answer, and finally I decided to call somebody at the tech department and had to beg her to listen to me. And just say I have a daughter that has anxiety and this is causing a great deal of stress right now. I didn't know where else to go. So I guess as parents, if you're going to go to a virtual model, which I do not agree with at all, just kind of where do we go when we have issues, whether it's an internet connection or, the child just struggling to get into the Meet. I'm not tech savvy, so I kind of rely on my kids to do that. And if they're not able to do it, it just creates extra added stress since I'm working at home trying to do that and trying to help them. So I just hope you guys make the best decision for the kids, and hopefully that's going back to school so they can socialize with their kids and have with their friends and have at least somewhat of a normal school year. So that's all I have. I thank you for your time and hope for a good decision.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello?
Is this Amy Lance?
Yes, it is.
This is Dr. Priatel for the Altoona Area School Board meeting. This is public comment. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'm a parent of a former senior last year and a parent of a current 10th grader this year. And I have to say that nothing of what has been put into place up until this point has worked well. We need to stop and consider that we are asking our children to be in front of screens for hours upon hours every day. My son is a straight A student. He took summer school last year so that he could continue his language classes in addition to CTC. He worked 12 to 14 hours a day to keep up with his classwork. This is unacceptable. And now we want to put him in front of the screen all day long to have these virtual classes where there's no real interaction. The teacher can't see that he's struggling. He has communication issues. My son is autistic. He does have an IEP. He has communication issues. The teacher can't see he's struggling from behind a screen. So no one is there to help him. I've employed a college student to help tutor him in classes that I'm not able to work with him on. This is beyond ridiculous. We need to consider if we are going back to this virtual model, which I understand, we are short on staffing, we're having issues in that area. I really do. But we need to cut back on how much we're pushing on these kids every single day. Take us to 4 classes per day. Take us to every other day with Friday with office hours. Trying to have office hours while these children are in classes is absolutely ridiculous. No one can jump from one class to office hours to with someone else back to that class and still be expected to learn anything in the midst of spotty reception,
and bad connections, which I personally experienced through conferences with one of my child's teachers. I understood every fifth word the teacher said. We could not complete a conference. It was insane. We need to understand that teachers are parents too. They have their own kids that they're going to be teaching in this model, and that they're trying to work and keep up with their 100 students that they're responsible for, 150 students, whatever it may be, in addition to teach their own children. We need to stop and think and plan before we just jump blindly into making decisions that make no sense and we're worse off for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Two trends.
That was our final caller.
The issue tonight is, of course, how we're going to proceed with school. Is it going to be in person? Is it going to be virtual? And the administration has a proposal, so I think I will turn that over to you and we'll hear that first.
We sent to the board the structure, for secondary and elementary. It is extensive live synchronous instruction with other periods for the kids to be able to do work, etc. And I'd like Brad to go over the secondary, and if Haley can go over the elementary when he's done, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Cretel. So the proposal is at beginning Tuesday, December 1st, and continuing through Monday, February 1st, which will be the balance of the second marking period. Students in grades 6 to 12 would participate in
Mr. Hatch online, we're going to have a
louder.
Speak up. Thank you.
Louder. Use this one. Okay. Is that better, Mr. Hoover?
That is perfect. Thank you, Brad.
Okay, once again, secondary virtual beginning next Tuesday and continuing through Monday, February 1st. All students in grades 6 through 12 will participate in a fully virtual learning model. We have transitioned in the beginning of the second marking period to a hybrid model where every other day students were participating fully virtual. That will continue for all classes, all 8 periods every day. Students will follow their current schedule for attending live classes that will be delivered virtually for their entire schedule. Students' time schedule will mirror the face-to-face schedule that they're currently in. Students will sign into their daily reporting period by 7:35 a.m. and proceed to attend each class by Google Meet, Google Hangout, and/or Zoom and other platforms that are being utilized by teachers and posted to their Google Classroom. In addition, students will complete assignments, assessments, and activities posted to Google Classroom daily by each teacher. Physical education and some other courses that require in-person participation will be delivered and documented with a combination of both synchronous and asynchronous activities daily. This does not mean that students will be in front of a screen for 7 hours a day. What this means is that they will see their teachers every day. This learning platform and model, although not ideal, will give students the opportunity to interact with their classmates and their teachers on a daily basis. That direct live instruction may fluctuate anywhere between 15, 30, 45 minutes on a daily basis, depending on the activity that's taking place that day. This will allow for continuity of education and a continuation as we move through the curriculum in all content areas. Teachers will also follow their assigned instructional schedule, teaching their courses live each day to students. Teachers will take in the instruction and facilitate learning activities and assessments as they would during face-to-face instruction. Teachers will be working either from the classroom or from home to allow for flexibility that they need within their schedule and to meet their individual personal needs. Teachers are required to provide authentic learning opportunities for students that include live face-to-face instruction, modeling, guided practice, collaborative virtual learning, demonstrations, and formative and summative assessments. Teachers will have full access to their instructional materials in their classroom and the technology needed to deliver virtual learning from home or in their classroom setting. Our teachers will continue to follow the scope and sequence and curriculum maps that currently exist in a face-to-face instructional model, and they will have designated times to provide assistance and support for students, whether it be live through one of our platforms, through email, or other means of communication. Teachers will provide support during their designated principal assignment period, and they will offer dedicated office hour times to provide students and parents the support that they need to be successful virtually. Our administrative teams, clerical support, and other supports will be available in the buildings on a daily basis to provide parents with a need to answer questions and provide other supports and align supports with technology and other areas that may be in need. This will allow us to get through the next, hopefully, 6 to 8 weeks in the most positive and productive way for our students. We feel like we can provide a continuity of education for our students in this model. I believe we were very successful from a secondary standpoint in the first 9 weeks with the level that was being delivered. I know we had some comments tonight about the level of rigor and the amount of work that was being required of students. And that is a fine line. I want people to understand that we've really challenged our teachers to provide the same level of rigor that they normally would in a classroom setting, but finding that balance between what is enough but not too much. We have challenged them with maintaining pacing guides in all of their content areas so that students are not missing out, so that students that are in AP classes will complete the required content by the time that AP testing is available. That students, when they're evaluated by the Keystone or PSSA exam at the end of the year, have already covered the content and material necessary for them to realize success on those exams and also successfully pass their courses. We are doing everything possible to make sure we try to find that balance and maintain a balance of both educational rigor and an understanding and empathy for the situation that many of our students and families are going through. Once again, our number one priority is and always will be the students, their safety, and the safety of our learning community. We feel like that we can provide this level of education that is necessary for our students under the virtual learning model for the temporary time being. Any questions?
Sure, I have a question.
Sure.
Why do we let our teachers work from home? Why do we let our teachers work from home to help them out with their own daycare, but the parents who are having troubles, like it's a double standard we're allowing right there. They should have to find daycare for their children too. They should have to come into the building and work. That's what we're paying them to do. They should show up and do their job.
Can I interrupt here a minute? I think we need a motion and a second and then have to second.
A motion.
I'll second it. Okay, no, go ahead. Sorry.
So if that's again.
I heard a question. I believe under this model, it will allow flexibility for our instructional staff that if they feel that they can best deliver from this environment in their school buildings, that they can do that with their instructional materials and things in the school. But if they also are able to effectively instruct and deliver from their home setting, that they have the flexibility to do so. The goal of this model, obviously, is to limit contact. And by providing teachers with the opportunity to work from an at-home model, we are further limiting the contact that those adults, our employees, would have with any possible cases in a school setting. Based on what we saw from the first 9 weeks, I do feel like that our teachers have proven that they are professional and are capable of delivering quality instruction from an at-home setting.
I disagree with it.
I tend to agree with Ed. I think they need to be in the school if that's the way it's going to be, not that I'm agreeing with this plan.
And I do believe that a good number of our instructional staff will decide to come into the building to deliver instruction. Obviously, we have a network system here where they have quality access to network that would not inhibit their ability to deliver to their students. Their instructional materials are readily in hand. Once again, I think from a professional courtesy standpoint, I do believe that it makes sense to offer the opportunity and the flexibility for our instructional staff to deliver from home and or their instructional setting in schools.
What changed? Because I know earlier with virtual, you wanted them in the school.
Understand, and you're right, and I ultimately, as we've talked about these models back and forth now for a couple of months, ideally we all want our kids and our students in school.
Yeah.
But under our current situation in our community, I feel that it's responsible and that it makes sense to put a pause to what we're doing in terms of our hybrid learning model and to look at a virtual learning model for our students and for our staff. One of the things that has been very evident over the past couple of weeks is the number of staff members impacted by COVID has been extensive. And ultimately, when your staff members are impacted by COVID, you are impacting your students. Whether it be that you have to have a substitute or that they have to deliver instruction from home while they're currently on quarantine or that they're a positive case. I will tell you that just to demonstrate the professionalism of our staff, of every staff member that I know of that we've quarantined or that has been infected with COVID, there isn't one that has not agreed to deliver instruction while at home. Every one of those teachers, their number one concern and priority was their students and the education that they would not be receiving with them being impacted by a quarantine or a COVID positive.
But
So
that is definitely a change from when we started this whole procedure, that you wanted them in the school. And I don't agree with the virtual anyway, but if you're going to do it, the teachers, I think, need to come to work.
in taking feedback, which one of the things that the board has always asked us to do is to listen to teachers and to listen to the feedback of our entire family in the school setting. There is a need and a request for teachers to have flexibility to be able to deliver from either home or from an in-school setting, and being sensitive to their needs. I feel that it's an option that we should make available to our instructional staff.
What are the statistics on the teachers that want to be in school right now?
Well, that want to be in school or like in school teaching. We don't have current statistics on that in terms of the number of teachers that want to be like here delivering full time. We don't have current statistics on that. I mean, we had statistics from back in the beginning of the year, and that was roughly 50% at that time.
Okay,
Be
what
careful,
about,
Ed.
the life skills?
I want to weigh in. Be careful, Ed. Your hostility towards teachers is showing, and everyone watching knows it.
I just,
Kelly speaking. Let Kelly speak.
I'm sorry. I just
Well,
asked
if
a
Kelly
question.
would speak into the microphone, I would listen to her.
I am speaking into the microphone. Can you
Well,
not hear
apparently
me?
it's not on.
What's up? Hang on. Can
No
your mic-
one can hear you.
Eric, your mic.
Test.
Is his coming through?
Well, but they can't share one. There's one for.
Right.
Can you hear
Ron.
mine?
Apparently those aren't working because it didn't work for Brad either.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Better.
Okay. My question was, what about the life skills and autistic support kids that have been in school full time? Because we had a lot of questions about that.
Correct. I mean, and we did have our self-contained students that were in during the first working period for secondary and have been in for elementary as well. And we did have populations of students that were attending for a full 5-day schedule. Highest need kids that had very small numbers in their classrooms. Again, I will go back to, for the temporary time being, we feel it is in the best interest of all students at this point to go to a virtual model for all of those students. Now, understand what virtual is going to look like for those students is totally different than what it would look like for a student that does not have special needs or have an IEP. We will look at providing them instructional support and instructional materials that are at their level and that are capable of being accomplished in an at-home setting.
I'm sorry, I just don't think that's good enough. I think that we need to come up with a threshold of our teachers being out and our students being out. And that is when we decide to go to virtual, regardless of what the governor says. I mean, they're not looking at our community specifically. We have less, as of Friday, we had less than 20% of teachers out. And the student rate was, I mean, we have what, like 1 to 3 positive cases since the beginning of the year.
For
So
the
that's
week of
why-
November 20th, we have 16 positive cases of students and 380 students on quarantine, 4 of which students have actually been in the building, necessitating a class quarantine or multiple class quarantine. That's been since November 20th. So that was since last Friday.
Okay, so what percentage is that of 6,000 students?
The
thought it was
issue
7.
comes down, it's not the percentage. The other thing that has not been revealed about the governor's edict. The mandate states that we are to follow all of the, in order to have kids in the building, we must agree to follow the masking, the social distancing, and thresholds for closing the schools based on the number of students who are infected.
Okay,
His 16, we're ought to have 4.
but,
We'd have to shut the
okay,
school down.
so one school, not every school. I mean, we can do it on a school by school basis, can't we? We had to shut down Juniata. So why can't we look at the schools individually? We don't have to shut down 10 schools because one school has a high percentage of students.
But you do realize that we are dealing with cases in every building.
Yes, I realize that.
And we're dealing with faculty cases, and we're dealing with student cases, and we're having to quarantine whole lot. Well, we had 2 autistic classrooms out at Penn Lincoln last week. We've had classrooms out at Everett. We've had classrooms out at Juniata. We've had classrooms out at Baker. We've had classrooms out at Pleasant Valley. I mean, across the district, we've had to quarantine for anywhere from a week to 2 weeks, depending on when the infection was. This is not so from that standpoint, we do have high numbers by the governor's threshold. That's where the thing comes down to. He would be saying to us, you're in violation of the mandate.
But it's not a mandate. It says right here, Pennsylvania recommends. It's a recommendation. It's not a mandate. And what
Wait,
really-
here's the other thing. I think, I'm sorry to
That's
interrupt
okay.
you, Sharon,
That's
but I think that we aren't evaluating the exposure right. I mean, we had one teacher, and we shut down 7 classes, have to quarantine now, okay? Those students were masked as well as the teacher being masked. So why, I mean, that doesn't meet the guidelines for exposure.
When you look at direct contact, masked or unmasked is not one of the criteria. It's 6 feet or less for a sustained period of time in the 15-minute range. Just to give you an idea.
But are those
Today-
students 6 feet from the teacher? I mean,
Depends on what activity. And that's why, the contact tracing is literally taking hours because we are contacting the person who's positive. And not only the person who's positive or presumed positive, you are then having to contact every person that they came in contact with. So in a secondary setting, you're anywhere between 100 and 150 students per teacher, depending on their academic schedule. So today, and I just want to paint a picture. So our high school today had 23 total teachers out.
okay.
We had 5 substitutes to cover those 23 total teachers. So we essentially were covering 18 students, either with other persons or pulling special education teachers who typically would be assigned to support special education students in an inclusion setting. They were pulled to full-time, essentially monitor those students, not really deliver instruction. 15 of those total teacher absences were directly related to COVID, either a quarantine or a positive. We had 4 clerical staff out, both of our full-time nurses and are impacted, and then the rest of the nursing staff in that building were on quarantine due to the positives that were present in those areas. We have basically our entire school police force out on quarantine and or positive. Our entire business office is on quarantine. Our entire human resources department is on quarantine. I was on quarantine until I got a negative test. So the level of impact that these are having, as we talked about before, it expands exponentially very quickly in terms of the number of students that can be impacted and the number of other staff members that can be impacted.
So what if we consider shutting down the school for 2 weeks, just shutting it down completely and adding it on to the end of the school year? Like we would if we had snow days.
I guess I would question why we would do that when we can deliver instruction effectively during those 2 weeks in a virtual.
You're not
I don't
delivering it
believe it's quality
effectively.
instruction.
The
I
parents
think
will
the,
tell you absolutely.
I think the
It's not
motion on the floor
working.
is whether or not we'll accept the administrative recommendation to go to a virtual plan at this point. I think we can argue for the rest of tonight,
Okay.
tomorrow, and there's very strong feelings.
We're just that. I'm
And
okay.
I think the
We-
fact that we had 18 phone calls, and I'm sure most parents you talk to want their child in school. I think most, in fact, all of the board will say, yes, the best model educationally for children is for them to be in school. But we have a situation here where we do have COVID, and it's a pandemic that's affecting Altoona. It's affecting everybody worldwide. We have a motion on the floor. There was a second as to whether or not we would agree to go to this virtual model, and or if it's approved by a majority of the board, we do it. If it's turned down by a majority of the board, we don't do it. Then we look at what you're saying here. But I feel that we need to address
No.
the question on the floor.
We're allowed to give our opinions and discussion.
Yes,
we
we
are,
are
but it's
discussing it,
just-
and then we will have a vote. We have not.
Well, it just seems like it's a circular discussion that comes back to where you keep expressing, you think, you already stated you're not going to vote for a virtual model, but maybe there's board members who will.
I didn't state that. I'm asking the question.
It's Sharon.
We
you
are
stated
having,
it. I heard it on the, I mean, you can hear. And Sharon, you stated that. Kelly, I'm not I didn't hear you say that. No. But okay, it's a
thank
vote that we have to
I will
take.
not vote for vote. Because I have listened to people, I have listened to teachers, I have listened to parents, and I hear what they say. And I also listened to the White House COVID task force last Thursday. And Dr. Fauci, everybody says they want to listen to the experts. You're listening to Governor Wolf, who is not an infectious disease doctor. He knows nothing about this. And Dr. Fauci said, keep kids in school. Then today I found on the internet, he made another quote, close bars and open schools. That's Dr. Fauci, one of the experts. Dr. Redfield also spoke, the head of the CDC. He is in charge of this COVID situation we're dealing with. He said K-12 can operate safely and responsibly. K-12 school is the safest place for kids, should remain in school. Don't make emotional decisions. Schools and higher learning are not the problem. We will get the pandemic under control. This is Dr. Redfield. These are not just governors. These are people who have knowledge of this. Health and Human Services Assistant Secretary in charge of mental health and substance abuse also spoke. And she said, schools are valuable to children's whole health. Keep our schools open for the kids. Kids with disabilities are losing ground. And I think we heard that tonight. And there's also an increase of drug overdose and suicide, and it's being caused by COVID-19. So these are people that everyone says we should listen to, but when they say keep your schools open, you don't want to hear it. I don't get it. And I've talked to teachers, you want to do virtual. I'm told that we don't have enough iPads to give to all of our younger students to learn. And you're asking parents, oh, do you have a computer at home? Yes, maybe they have a computer at home, but an iPad has a touch screen, and these little kids need a touch screen.
We're
And we
able to
have-
provide devices to whatever student that has a hardship at home, that it does not have the ability to access the online content. We
You
have a
have,
plan for
exactly,
we have a
not
plan for
look.
distribution.
One for every child.
And that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying for any parent that has a need, and this is what other districts around us that are doing for any student that has a need and has requested a device, we have those devices available to distribute to the students.
So what if you run short and you have more people requesting than what you have devices, then what?
Mr. Coster, I'll just, because I don't know the exact numbers, but I would say that based on the numbers that we've seen from last year and from the fall, would you agree that we have enough devices to meet the needs of our students?
So what if the parents realize that they said, yes, we have a computer, but it does not have a touch screen, and now they need a device? I can't hear you.
The Seesaw platform for our K-2 students is an online based program. So yes.
Yeah, I still can't hear him.
Sorry.
Lift your shield up a little bit here.
Can you hear me better?
Yes.
Okay. So the Seesaw platform is an online platform that can be used with both a touchscreen and a laptop device or a desktop computer.
Does it work the same with both of them?
It's not the same.
No.
Certainly with the touchscreen, some of our children do really well with the touchscreen, and it's helpful for them to be able to touch and just write in their answers. I know personally having a stylus was more helpful when my child was on quarantine. So I think there are different scenarios and different situations depending on how you're utilizing. But there is the ability to press a button so that you can just type the answer in versus having to write that in with your finger or a stylus or, depending on the device that you're using.
To type it in for what? Kindergarten, first, second grade?
Correct.
Because I'm hearing from teachers and parents that is not working.
Because certainly when children are typing in, I mean, depending on the ability of the student and how they are working with the program, I mean, they certainly need taught. I know our teachers have done a great job at getting kids acclimated to this program throughout the beginning of the school year. There are certainly hiccups and questions that we've been answering. We have online tutorials on the website as well as informational packets that will go home to every parent that is picking up a device, whether it be an iPad or, they're utilizing a different device. And we're willing to help families. There have been many families. I just was on the phone with a grandma earlier this week, and she scheduled a time to come in so that I can walk through that with her to help get that functioning so that her grandchildren, while they're working, her parents are working, so that we can help them. So, this is not an effort that we're expecting families to go out alone. We're certainly here to support throughout this time. We know that it is not easy for everyone, but we'll certainly help in any way we can.
How do you help the mother that has 4 children and can't be dealing with 4 children at one time?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I mean, we can help and support with the device setup. We can help and support with getting them, working through. But as far as the working through with 4 children, there are certainly scheduling things that we can talk through, tips and tricks that we found from other parents. I know myself as a parent, my child was on quarantine and having to juggle and work through those pieces. I was here working, when she was working on her schoolwork at home. So I know we have varying needs with our families, and we certainly can help and provide those options and opportunities to be able to talk through things and support them. But, as far as physically being there to help and support in the home, obviously that's
Right.
not something.
You can't do it. and the
Correct. That's
parent
not
can't
something
do
that
it.
we can-
Wait,
And they're asking for their
guys,
students.
Stop. Listen, you know what? This back and forth isn't helping anything because it's not. Sharon, I have the floor. You asked a question, Sharon. You pointed out several things.
No, we had the floor. You interrupted.
Good. I'm going to keep.
We had the floor.
Now, I'm done with you. You're going to listen to what I'm saying right now, Sharon, because you're on high.
I am not
and
listening.
you act like you know everything, and you talk like you know everything, and you won't even follow basic guidelines. You still won't wear a mask. And you're saying to people, close bars, close restaurants, keep kids in school, but you don't do either. And you go out to restaurants without masks on. So don't tell the community what to do when you yourself, as the board president, won't even do it.
That's Dr. Fauci saying close bars,
Yeah, and
open
Sharon,
schools.
I'm pointing
Right here
out to you, as the board president, refuse to wear a mask. The board president.
Do you know my medical condition? Do you know my medical condition?
Tell me what it is, Sharon.
Are you a doctor?
I have a good idea what
No,
it
it's
is.
none of
And it has nothing to do with
none of you. Let's move on. I'm done.
Yeah,
Let's
you
move
are,
on.
promise.
Anyway, the parents are telling me they cannot do this, and this
And
virtual
guess
is
what?
not
The
working.
parents are
And it's
telling
not
me
just
different. The
and
parents are telling me different.
Also,
The teachers are telling me different. So whatever you're hearing, I'm hearing different.
good for you. And it's not just the little kids, it's the bigger kids as well. And these little kids are not reading at the reading level they're supposed to be reading at. Is that a correct statement? Because I'm hearing that from multiple teachers.
What's your
Yeah,
option,
certainly we've
Sharon?
had children.
What's your option?
Go ahead.
Can you let Mrs. Flegel respond?
So certainly we've had students that were out of school from March through the end of the year. You know, as we're working and we're seeing and monitoring reading levels, certainly there were, you know, some areas where children were sliding, were not progressing at the level that they needed to. As we're moving forward and we're instructing, I was happy to hear some parents reporting that some of the intervention pieces, they're seeing their children growing and they're working through. With this model, we fully intend to continue those intervention supports and be able to do so live, face-to-face, so that we can continue to close that gap. You know, it's no secret, having children in a traditional setting 5 days a week, as we typically would, we certainly see more progress with our students as if we're closing a gap in regard to reading. And that certainly is very beneficial and helpful. In this model, though, I do feel confident that having 5 days a week and being able to continue that and not lapse, to be able to continue that support, that we are going to do the very best we can to continue to not create a larger gap. When we have children out of school for periods of time, whether it be on quarantine or, you know, whether we would have to shut down completely, we're going to see a large gap in that regard if we continue that direction. So if we are moving to a safe environment where we can continue to provide the instruction virtually, we will continue to close gaps and not see gaps get any larger.
But there are parents that are going to tell you that this virtual does not work. And we heard that tonight overwhelmingly. It is not working. But yet we want to give them more virtual now.
Certainly, go ahead.
I was going to ask you to recap yesterday's event.
Thank you. I'm happy to do so if everyone's comfortable with that at this point in time. Is this a, can you hear me? All right. Effective at the end of the midnight this morning, an order went into place that implemented a requirement for school districts to complete an attestation, which is a form on which the superintendent and board president certify what the school is going to be doing. And the requirement that is most prominent arising out of that order is the fact that that you absolutely have to submit this attestation to the Department of Education before 5/30, or you will be required to do entirely remote instruction and suspend all extracurricular activities. So the first requirement that's upon you that you need to address tonight, in addition to making a decision, will be authorizing that attestation. So there's two, you'll see on the agenda, there are two motions. They really are going to be addressed together, because whatever you put in your attestation is going to be based on the decision that you make this evening. And the attestation is absolutely required in order to avoid a mandatorily imposed remote instruction and suspension of extracurricular activities. The attestation itself identifies two choices for the school district to select that they have to represent to the Pennsylvania Department of Education as what they're going to be doing if you are in fact in a county with a substantial transmission rate. The decision to be made is whether you're going to report that you're doing full remote learning, or that you're going to maintain some or all in-person instruction. And if doing so, you, through your superintendent or board president, would be certifying that you will be following the updated universal masking order and be following the updated recommendations for responses to positive COVID cases in schools. So then that breaks down into two requirements that come with a choice to maintain some or all in-person instruction. Those two requirements are, first, the universal masking order, which is updated as of November 18th and now requires masking at all times, regardless of physical distancing, when indoors among people who are not members of your household. So it is essentially a more stringent masking requirement that is not going to be mitigated by social distancing and is going to be in place at all times when any individual is indoors in a school building. It applies to visitors, it applies to staff, it applies to students. The second requirement, if you choose to maintain in-person instruction, is you're representing to PDE that you're going to comply with their updated recommendations for responses to positive cases. The updated recommendations give instructions based on the number of students in the building, on how many, and it is determined on the basis of positive cases. So, for example, if you have less than 500 students in a building while you are in substantial rating in your county, and you have 5 positive cases, you're directed to close for 14 days. So if you choose to maintain in-person instruction, you'll have to complete this attestation, which will also require you to attest that you are going to close in accordance with these models. It's making it a mandatory requirement. So important to note that even if you were to choose to maintain in-person instruction, in doing so, you would be representing the state that you're going to follow these models, which may very well entail closing buildings for at least 14 days at a time based on the number of positive cases in a rolling 14-day period and the number of students in that building.
So is it based on student positive cases or student and teacher positive?
Student and teacher positive cases.
Okay. So that is our threshold. I mean, that's what I've been saying. Why don't we come up with a plan that we have some sort of threshold where we decide when we have to close that school? They're designing that threshold for us. My whole thing was that, back in March, all of a sudden we started throwing data out the window and we've no longer made our decisions based on data. We're just making it based on, I think, emotion a lot of times. And I think we need to get back to the data. So if they're setting that threshold, we could keep our students the way that they are. And if we have to go to virtual, then we go to virtual. We have the plan in place.
The requirements are one student or one staff should consider altering schedule significant decrease in number of students.
Doc, it's hard to hear you.
Sorry.
Okay, but we have done that with the hybrid model, correct?
That's for one student and or one staff. Two to 4 students and staff, schools should consider entering, decreasing, should close. Schools should alter schedule significantly, decrease the number of students on site, close schools for 3 to 7 days, cleanse all areas where cases spent time, public health staff to direct close contacts to quarantine. We are doing that right now. 5+ students or staff. Schools should consider altering schedule, close 14 days, clean entire school, public health to direct close contacts. We're doing these pieces as our numbers dictate. We have closed, well, we closed Juniata, and we have sent out several classes. The thing is, with 5 students and staff, the high school would be closed.
But wait, Liz said that was for less than 500 students. So we're over 500 students. So what are the statistics for over 500 students?
For over 500 students, it is between 500 and 900 students. It's 7 students and staff.
Okay, and then
900 and above, it's 11 students and staff in a rolling 14-day period, which means the day you're looking at your numbers, you look back 14 days and count. Have you had 7? Have you had 11? Have you had 5? Depending on the size of the building.
okay.
Positive cases, not quarantine. Now, quarantine is certainly relevant to Mr. Hatcher's describing as the level of impact on your operations, your ability to find subs, your ability to teach the classes. It's not an insignificant issue, but the models that you would be committing to follow if you chose in-person instruction under this attestation are based on number of positive cases among students and staff and the number of students in the building. And as a reminder, this came out yesterday. So this is all news to everybody, including your administrators that are working to make their recommendations here.
Okay. Okay.
It is a couple other points coming out of the order that was issued on this from the Pennsylvania Department of Education and the Pennsylvania Department of Health. It is a Pennsylvania Department of Health and the Pennsylvania Department of Education that school entities in counties with substantial disease transmission rates transition to remote-only instructional models. It is also true that those departments and their secretary head and the governor recognize that this is ultimately a local decision. And so as a check and balance, recognizing that some school entities in counties with substantial rates are making the decision to maintain in-person instruction, they adopted this order to say to impose more requirements on those schools to ensure safety and to have a check and balance and holding them more accountable than they were held previously with respect to the universal masking order and these models. These models were recommended before. There was nothing in place to require them. This would now require them if you remain open in person.
Can I ask a?
So the CDC, go ahead.
Can I ask a question? Logistically, I'm just asking logistically. Do we have the capability to do social distancing and with the amount of students we have right now? I guess I'm asking that of Brad or Dr. Prieto. Because I don't see it.
In the classroom, yes. Not at all times. I'll give you an example. Despite having multiple scheduled cafeteria times and utilizing 2 to 3 additional cafeteria spaces, we have limited students to every other seat in our cafeterias. Serving them becomes a challenge. I know someone had mentioned earlier about, we want to give kids an option. We do have grab and go options at lunch, but we do also have hot food available, and we have clearly marked 6 feet on all their serving areas, but that then does take time to serve students. So essentially during classroom time in a hybrid model, we really don't have any classes that are exceeding 15 to 16 students. And at that number, we can socially distance. However, you then limit what instructional activities that you're providing in the classroom. If you're going to have 100% social distancing at all times, you severely limit the ability to do small group instruction, labs, and other activities that are part of normal everyday instruction in most classes. So there are challenges. However, I will say that our in-person numbers have been about 60% of our total capacity. So on a given day, we might have between 500 and 600 students at our junior high, between 580 and 650 at our senior high. At that number, you can social distance within classes. Some are a little bit larger than others. But what we are finding is that a lot of students that are eligible to return on an A/B day are choosing to stay home and participate virtually. And getting around a lot of classes in the last 2 weeks, my observations have been that most classrooms are between 6 and 12 students. When they're in there with a higher number participating online virtually. As the numbers have increased, we've seen a decrease in the number of live students at school. Cafeteria and transitional times, despite using directional movement, despite using staggered dismissal and entry, there are challenges in terms of keeping kids 6 feet apart at all times. We are enforcing masking at all times. So that has not, and that really has not been an issue except for a couple of isolated incidences. Students are relatively compliant with masking. We're doing temperature checks every morning still. We're monitoring symptoms. But I will tell you, just based on what Ms. Benjamin's numbers were, under that scenario, week ending November 20th and week going to be ending November 27th, both the high school and junior high school would be closed.
But all elementary schools would be open?
I can't speak to that. I mean, I've been monitoring the secondary numbers, but I can't speak to in terms of if you're combining. Now, all of our elementaries will be under 500. So they're looking at the 5 number versus the 7 number that both of our high school and junior high school would be operating under. So
we would have some elementary schools that would be closed under that.
Do you know how many?
Pleasant Valley, Baker, maybe.
Well, Junior and the Gap has more than 500.
Well,
Not
on
every
a
other
hybrid
day.
So
Not on
because
every
we're
other day.
accounting for hybrid attendance, so it would be less than 500 with hybrid attendance.
But is that what the CDC says, or is that what the Pennsylvania, is that what they say we have to do?
I believe it was 500 or less.
Yeah, but not 500 or less.
5 positive students or
Right, but that's for a building. So when we look at that building, there is 750 kids at Juniata Gap, whether they're going every day or every other day. It's still, we're still looking at the population of the school, how many kids are in and out of there.
Your total population of Juniata Gap right now is 600.
Okay.
I would use the total population because there's no distinction made for if you're using a hybrid, and then that would alter how this applies every single
Right.
time you alter between the models, plus it's the same amount of exposure for your staff. So I would use the total figures when looking at these
The
models.
issue is that every building would have had a closure at some point. Maybe Logan would be the one that hasn't had as many.
I was going to say, I think
Logan's probably been probably.
Yeah.
They have one student of this.
Right.
Right.
Obviously,
We've had
this,
close
obviously, this is an emotional issue, and I would like to apologize. It's very emotional to me because I hear from teachers and students and parents every day as well, and it's very emotional to them. Therefore, I feel that as well. But yes, can we just vote, please? Can I move to vote? We have a second, correct?
People are still discussing this.
I think it's important for everyone to understand that if these two choices presented by this attestation that's now required, all of this came out yesterday, the choice to maintain the in-person instruction involves a commitment to these models, which, as you just indicated, would still involve some closing of schools for at least a period of 14 days. And that's what I felt is the newest bit of information coming out of this order that everyone should be aware of and have an opportunity to discuss with regard to understanding what that impact is and on whom in connection with your vote.
I know in the US Senate, they can filibuster, and I'd have a question for Liz. If board members call for the question, do we still have to listen to discussion? I mean, we've had discussion after discussion, and it seems rather circular.
When under the Roberts rules, when there's a call for the question and there's dispute over whether to move forward with the vote, the call for a question needs a second and a vote on the question of calling the question when it's objected to. Otherwise, sometimes you say call the question and you move forward. But
you're muted,
I will
Frank.
call for the question. And you would have
I
to
will
go-
second it.
So now we what?
You should take a vote on whether to move forward with the vote on these items 1 and 2.
Or continue to have
Discussion.
discussion.
Right, if you vote yes in favor of calling the question, you're voting in favor of taking vote at this time. If you vote no to calling the question,
We can
you are
continue that
preferring
discussion.
further discussion.
Okay, could we have a roll call vote, please?
This is a vote on whether to call the question. Mrs. Breen?
No.
Mr. Francis?
Yes.
Mr. Haw? Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
Mrs. Irwin Adams?
No.
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Cruz?
No.
Dr. Malloy?
Yes.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Okay, I
It
guess
passes 5-4 to call the question.
then we go forward with the vote. And this is on items 1 and 2?
2 is necessarily dictated by 1.
By 1,
So,
okay.
yes.
Could we have a roll call vote on that?
So I
This is
want to
the vote
clarify the
on-
vote. So if we vote on this, are we voting yes to go full virtual?
Yes, if you
So this
vote
vote,
yes in favor of This is a vote being called on the administration's recommendation for approval of a change to the COVID-19 school reopening plan and amendments to health and safety plan to reflect a shift to full remote learning as described on the agenda, and for a time frame of the earlier of February 1st or the first point at which Blair County has experienced 2 continuous weeks of a transmission rate below substantial level.
Thank you for clarifying.
And do we have that motion on the floor then with a second?
Yes, we do.
Correct. Mr. Cruz made the motion and Mrs. Bream seconded it.
So we take a roll call now.
That's what we're doing.
Mr.
All right.
Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Bream,
No.
Mr. Francis,
Yes.
Mr. Ha. Mr. Hoover,
Yes.
Mrs. Irwin Adam,
No.
Mr. Johnston,
Yes.
Mr. Cruz,
No.
Dr. Malloy.
Yes.
5-4, motion passes. Moving on to transportation and food service. Do you want to expand upon that?
Great request. Administration requests or recommends authorization of the superintendent to maintain contract payments and/or a percentage of contracted payments to transportation and food service contractors during the periods of virtual instruction in accordance with applicable law, and in the event future legislation is passed to address such matters. Superintendent is hereby authorized to exercise his discretion in adjusting the rates of payment to a reduced level, so long as so maintains the maximum subsidy to be received and otherwise most beneficial to the school district as permitted by law. What we're asking for is the ability to make adjustments. There is legislation that is going to maintain transportation subsidy. And but we have to maintain a certain level of payment to ensure that we receive that subsidy. It's in the best interest of the district to have the flexibility to put that together based on what is in the best economic interest of the district. With the virtual, we will still have to transport parochial students, and there may be other situations we need to transport just as we did in the spring. But at the same time, we realize as an administration, we have to seek and pay the least amount of money possible, but at the same time, we do not want to jeopardize our reimbursements from the state or otherwise penalize the district. So the purpose of this motion is to give us the flexibility to act when the law is acted on by the legislature to make sure the district's in the best position for the best financial position under the law.
Can I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? Questions?
What percentage of the contract pays?
It would be a maximum of 85 for the transportation. We haven't even had a discussion with the food service at this point, but that would be the maximum.
So it could get lower than that.
It definitely could go lower than that.
So they're going to get paid whether they're hauling students or not is basically what you're saying, other
Yes.
than parochial schools, which are going to be in session.
The situation is, what does the legislation say to us? If the legislation is going to pull all our reimbursement, if we don't continue to make our transportation payments based on whatever the minimum we can pay is, then we're losing millions of dollars worth of subsidy, and it's going to cost us more in the long run. So we don't want to be jeopardizing our ability to maintain our subsidy.
Can we find that out in advance before we pay them? Because once you pay them, the money's gone.
Well, that's our intention. Our intention is to work through this process based on what's happening in the legislature. The Senate has already passed it. It's gone to the House. It's a question of how it moves through the House here in the next few weeks.
And are we going to be paying food service for food they're not preparing? Preparing virtual meals.
Susan. Yeah.
We would be paying food service for the meals that we would distribute in packages, in bundled packages to students while we are during a virtual education period. Just like we did in the spring, we provided meals on a weekly basis to all the families. They were able to come to the buildings and pick them up. We would continue to do that, and food service will be paid based on that.
Okay, they're not going to be paid for not preparing food.
Right.
It's only going to be for what they're preparing. Okay.
Just as a point of clarification, my understanding of the legislation regarding transportation is that PDE and other agencies have 30 days from the date the governor signs that law to develop the standard that we're required to pay them to maintain the subsidy, which is why the language is so open in that motion.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions, discussion?
Not on this subject.
Okay. I guess we should have a roll call vote on this.
Mr. Francis,
Yes.
Mr. Hoff,
Yes.
Mr. Hoover,
Yes.
Mrs. Irwin Adams, Mr. Johnston,
Yes.
Mr. Cruz,
Yeah.
Dr. Malloy,
Yes.
Frank?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Breen.
Yes. Motion passes. Moving on to sports. You could tell us about that one.
What we are recommending is that there be a hiatus in sport practice approximately for approximately a little over 2 weeks. Coaches would use the specific COVID related precautions and protocols that Mr. Riccio has developed. They would have their 15, I believe they have to have 15 practices before they could start any form of competition. And then likewise, starting January 1, they would be able to continue their sports programs with competition depending on what's happening with their schedules and what's happening with Mid-Penn with our basketball teams and our other schedules with our other teams. Phil, you want to expound on this a little bit for me?
Good evening. Like Dr. Is this on? Like Dr. Critchell said before they can compete in a competition, they need to have 15 practices. The winter sports season started this past Friday, so most of our teams will have either 4 or 5 practice days in by the time that we shut down next week. After that point, when they start practicing, they'll be able to hit the requirement of 10 practices before the next competition. We do have safety protocols in place, similar to what we did in the summer, where teams that we will have teams coming in and leaving the building in shifts and through their own doors, so no team passes. The only team that will actually use a locker room for showering is the wrestling teams, and that's based on the nature of wrestling and the sport that it is. Every other team will come in, change if need be, get out onto the practice field. Teams will be responsible for cleaning, disinfecting their own equipment with the same system that we use in the fall. Maintenance will need to provide a clean facility in the field house and outside of the field house, and in between the afternoon and evening shifts. Questions?
Well, can we have a motion and a second first?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I think we had one here.
Yes, I got
Okay,
a
no
question.
questions.
Sharon, I got a question. What, my
Go.
question is
Ahead.
why this sports plan is even being considered without an athletic committee meeting? There's one next week, next Wednesday at 6 o'clock. Can't we wait to discuss this further?
Ron, I put it on the agenda because I wanted the coaches to be able to plan and move forward. Yes, we could table this and bring it back on the December 7th. That's not an issue.
I would make a motion to table it till Wednesday, and we can discuss this further in detail.
Okay, do we have a second?
I will
I'll
second.
second it.
Okay, motion's tabled. And I believe that is it.
Can I ask one
So-
question?
So I have
Real
some
quick.
stuff too.
So with what we voted on, it's February 1st or two weeks of whatever the cases are. So say next week and the following week, if we would drop down to moderate, we automatically go back to hybrid on that following Tuesday because the stats come out on Monday, so we go hybrid on Tuesday.
The administration can speak to what's in their proposal. You are able to, you have to resubmit an attestation every time you change, but you can, whenever you do change, however often or frequently you do so, you submit another attestation to PDE. So the administration can make that change and you can approve it retroactively, but they'll have to speak to what their intent was with when you're going to measure the 2 weeks and how quickly you would transition then if that were to occur.
Okay, on the COVID-19 dashboard then, is that information updated daily?
Updated on the Monday. Well, that's the updated on Friday, but the Excel spreadsheet is updated on Monday. So we could actually know on Friday, I believe.
We're talking about two different things. You have the school's dashboard and you have the state's dashboard. Okay, and if
We're going off the state's.
right, we would be going off the state's dashboard. My intention would be that if we have 2 weeks in the moderate, the third week we would be going back to hybrid.
Do you have to have another meeting?
You've given me the ability to, with this motion, to go back based on that. I mean, the whole purpose was to give a certain level of flexibility so that if the cases go down and we go out of substantial into moderate, that we can then shift back.
Right, okay.
Throughout this time, because of this requirement to submit an attestation is ongoing currently. And so you would need to keep track of your positive cases per building because of those models. Anytime you submit that attestation, it involves in-person instruction. You are representing that you're going to follow those models. So that's the data you want to keep track of it as well.
Right.
Had a lot of positive cases. And just so you don't forget, you have to come back and vote on the table.
Okay, and I think Mr. Cruz has a question.
Since we had to stop our discussion, I had a question from a parent that I'm going to ask Brad, I guess. Life skills and autistic, are they going full virtual also?
Full virtual, and they will not attend live in person, but there will be, when we say virtual, with those specialized populations, there will be modifications to the materials and to the curriculum that are provided to them. And our special education teachers will be working directly with them to provide them support while they are in in-home learning. So they will be in-home learning. It will be a combination of, depending on the needs and the abilities of the students that are involved, as to what that education actually looks like.
So, I mean, I'd like to say that we did the taxpayers, the parents a disservice by not finishing our conversation. And I don't only work for the teachers, I work for all the taxpayers and the taxpayers who pay the school tax. So I'd like to clarify that teachers might be mad, but there's a lot of mad taxpayers also.
And I feel bad for the parents that called tonight and the parents that I've been talking to, because we as a district give them the choice of cyber, virtual, or in person. So if anyone was uncomfortable with in person, all they needed to do was change their child to a different status. And I think we've done a disservice to our parents in this district and our kids. And that makes me feel bad.
let's not end this
I
meeting.
think there's different people talking different things now. Some board members are saying parents want face to face. Some say that they want online. So I don't know what, but we're forgetting the teachers and our staff,
Thank
our
you,
bus
Frank.
drivers,
Or Dave.
our administrators. Look what they have now. And I want to go face to face. In fact, I suggested that we go back to the old one, go K to 5 and then do virtual for the junior high and high school. That's what we should go to. There's no disservice to the public. The conversation was going round and round, and the conversation consisted of 4 people.
And I'd like to just say that, everybody's tired of this pandemic and everybody wants to get back to normal. And everybody on this board, I'm sure, agrees the very best learning model for students is face-to-face instruction. But this pandemic has presented unusual problems. Yes, I do talk to teachers. I retired 10 years ago, but I can tell you that we have an extremely professional teaching staff. They do an excellent, excellent job, whether it would be face-to-face, virtual, however they present instruction. You have a lot of really dedicated people that at this point need a pat on the back. And I think, we can say, yeah, we're representing taxpayers. We definitely are. But we're also representing teachers and students and the entire school district staff. So we got to make the best with the situation we're dealing with. And right now, the COVID situation in this community is very, very serious. And we got to get through it. I mean, help is on the way soon with these vaccines, but till they do kick in and we get people immune to this, we got to do the very best with the situation we have.
Can I weigh in here? Last week was American Education Week. It gives the country a chance to celebrate public education. I don't know if we honored our teachers last week, but as I do in these board meetings regularly, we have an incredible staff. Our teachers are doing yeoman's work. They're doing great. They're putting their lives, their families' lives on the line to do a great job. And by the way, those teachers are also taxpayers, Ed. And finally, one more thing. Tomorrow, we're dedicating a new facility, and we thank Thompson's Pharmacy for that. I had a conversation with Bill Thompson today, and they did a great thing for our school district. They continue to do great things for us. We lost a really good man in Bill Thompson. He's an excellent member of this community. And young Bill and by the way, Big Bill's wife, Ann, wants to continue to give back to the community. Incredible family. Thompson's Pharmacy appreciate everything you do for us.
And also one final thing, unsung heroes are Chuck Priatel and his administrative staff. I think they've done a fabulous job guiding us through this pandemic.
Any other comments?
Yes, Ed, your hostility toward teachers is not appreciated. That's all.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, we have to have a voice vote on the motion to table the athletics. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm assuming you are for it, not against it. Rick and Dr. McCoy.
I'm for it.
I'm for it.
Okay.
I voted yes.
Okay, I had moved on to against it. So, okay, so motion carries.